The necklace caught the late afternoon sun, its silver pendant spinning between my fingers like a tiny, mocking dancer. I hadn't worn silver in years, Mark knew that. The delicate chain definitely wasn't mine, and finding it wedged between the passenger seat cushions of his car felt like discovering a loaded gun. Friends, gather round. Before we start, share your location with us. Let's see how many different places we can connect through these stories. New here? Subscribe to join the fun. Ready? I'm Alicia, and until 10 minutes ago, I thought I had a handle on my life. Funny how a single piece of jewelry can shatter everything you thought you knew. Mrs. Bennett? Jorge, our regular car detailer, hovered nearby. Should I continue with the interior? Just. I closed my fist around the necklace, feeling the metal bite into my palm. Give me a minute. The garage suddenly felt too small, too warm. Mark's pristine BMW sat there like a crime scene, and in a way, maybe it was. 3 years of marriage, and this was how I discovered the truth while having his car detailed as a surprise for his birthday. My phone buzzed. Speaking of the devil. Hey babe, running late tonight. Colin's project is giving us hell. Us. The word hit differently now. That's fine, I said, proud of how steady my voice sounded. How late? Probably midnight. Samantha and I need to rework these projections before tomorrow's meeting. Samantha. Of course. His new junior analyst, fresh out of business school with perfect hair and a Master of Business Administration from Harvard. I'd met her at the company Christmas party, watched her laugh too hard at Mark's jokes. Don't work too hard, I said, tasting bile. You're the best. Love you. The call ended, and I stood there, staring at the necklace again. A small heart pendant with tiny diamonds around the edge. The kind of thing you'd give someone special. The kind of thing Mark used to give me before I became the wife who organized his dry cleaning and scheduled his car maintenance. Mrs. Bennett? Jorge again, more hesitant this time. Should I come back another day? I dropped the necklace into my pocket. No, finish the job. Make it perfect. My smile felt like broken glass. It's his birthday tomorrow, after all. Back in the house, I poured myself a generous glass of wine and called Olivia. She answered on the second ring. I need you to tell me I'm not crazy, I said, without preamble. Depends. What kind of crazy are we talking about? I described the necklace, the late nights, the way Mark's cologne sometimes smelled different when he came home. Each detail seemed more damning when spoken aloud. That son of a bitch, Olivia breathed. What are you going to do? I took another sip of wine, remembering Helen's smug face at Sunday dinner last week. Marriage takes work, dear, she'd said, as if I was somehow failing at being the perfect Bennett wife. As if her precious son could do no wrong. I'm going to make his birthday memorable, I said finally. Just not in the way he expects. Alicia. Olivia's voice held a warning note. Don't do anything rash. Rash would be confronting him tonight. Rash would be calling his mother or making a scene at his office. I traced the rim of my wineglass. I'm going to be much more thorough than that. What does that mean? I watched the sun sink behind the perfectly manicured trees of our perfectly curated neighborhood. It means I'm done being the good wife who looks the other way. Mark wants to play games? Fine. But he's about to learn that I'm not just a spectator anymore. The necklace in my pocket felt heavier now, like a key to a door I never wanted to open. But some doors, once discovered, can't be ignored. And behind this one, I had a feeling I'd find enough ammunition to burn Mark's carefully constructed world to the ground. Tomorrow, he'd get his birthday surprise. But the real celebration? That would come later, when he realized exactly what he'd lost and what I was capable of. The birthday dinner was a masterpiece of forced smiles and hollow congratulations. I'd arranged everything perfectly, the steaks done exactly how Mark liked them, Helen's favorite wine, and that necklace, wrapped in silver paper, waiting like a landmine on the dining room table. Such a lovely evening, Helen said, swirling her wine. Though perhaps next time we could try that new French restaurant downtown. They're chef trained in Paris, you know. I placed Mark's favorite chocolate cake on the table, complete with 31 candles. Sometimes home-cooked meals are more intimate, don't you think? Paul, unusually quiet tonight, studied his empty plate. Mark loosened his tie, already reaching for the stack of presents. He always did have trouble waiting. Open mine first, I said, sliding the small box toward him. My hands were steady, my voice light. I think you'll find it familiar. The paper crinkled as he unwrapped it. Helen leaned forward, eager as always to critique my gift-giving skills. The box opened with a soft click. Mark's face didn't change, but his knuckles went white around the box. It's lovely, darling. Isn't it? I picked up the necklace, letting it catch the light. I found it in your car yesterday. Funny thing is, I don't remember you ever giving it to me. The room went still. Helen's wineglass froze halfway to her lips. Alicia, Mark's voice held a warning. Perhaps we should discuss this later. Why? We're all family here. I turned to Helen. Don't you think it's beautiful? The kind of thing a man might give someone special? Helen's lips thinned. Dear, whatever you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Like the fact that Mark's been working late with Samantha Collins for months now. Or the fact that his cologne sometimes smells different when he comes home. This is inappropriate, Helen snapped. Mark, tell her to stop this ridiculous display. But Mark just sat there, his birthday cake's candles casting dancing shadows across his face. It's not what you think. Really? I pulled out my phone, pulled up the text messages I'd discovered that morning. Should I read these aloud? The ones where you tell Samantha how much you miss her. Or maybe the ones planning your weekend getaway? Paul suddenly pushed back from the table. I need some air. Paul, sit down, Helen commanded. This is just a misunderstanding. Mark would never. Like Robert never would? Paul's quiet words hit like a thunderbolt. Helen's face went ash white. Mark looked between his parents, confused. What about Uncle Robert? Nothing, Helen said quickly. Too quickly. I watched the family dynamics shift like tectonic plates. No, Helen, please share. What about Robert? Paul laughed, a harsh sound. Your mother's brother. The one who moved to Australia 20 years ago. Want to tell them why, Helen? This isn't about ancient history, Helen's voice shook. This is about Alicia making ridiculous accusations. Like mother, like son, Paul muttered, standing again. I need a drink. Mark's birthday cake sat forgotten, candles burning lower. I hadn't expected this turn, this sudden crack in the Bennett family facade. But I could use it. The necklace was just the beginning, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I have more. So much more. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Mark finally found his voice. You're bluffing. Try me. I stood, gathering my purse. I'll be at Olivia's. When you're ready to have an honest conversation about our future and about the money you've been moving from our joint account, you know where to find me. I walked out, leaving chaos in my wake. As I reached my car, I heard Helen's voice raised in argument, Paul's deeper tones responding. Then the sound of breaking glass. Sometimes revenge isn't just about exposing one person's lies. Sometimes it's about watching an entire house of cards collapse, one carefully placed card at a time. I started the engine, my hands finally beginning to shake. Phase 1 was complete. Now to call Olivia and her lawyer husband. Because if the Bennett family thought tonight was bad, they had no idea what was coming next. Olivia's guest room felt like a sanctuary, but I couldn't sleep. My phone kept lighting up with messages, 37 from Mark, 12 from Helen, and 1 from Paul that simply read, "We should talk." I ignored them all and opened my laptop instead. 3 years of marriage had taught me Mark's passwords, his habits, his patterns. What I found in his email made the necklace seem almost innocent. "You need to see this," I called out to Olivia and Tom, who were still up despite the late hour. Tom leaned over my shoulder, his lawyer's eyes scanning the screen. "These are wire transfers. Significant ones. To an account in the Cayman Islands." I scrolled through the documents. Started 6 months ago, right when Samantha joined the firm. Olivia squeezed my shoulder. "That's more than an affair." "It's fraud," Tom said quietly. "He's been moving client money offshore." "Alicia, this is serious." My hands shook as I forwarded everything to a secure email address. He told me the late nights were about the Collins project. Turns out the project was Samantha Collins herself. A text message lit up my phone, Samantha's name appearing like a curse. "We need to talk. About Mark. About everything." Tom straightened. "Don't respond. Whatever's happening, she's part of it." "Or she's scared," Olivia suggested. "Maybe she realized she's in over her head." I stared at the message, remembering how Samantha had smiled at me at company events. All while helping Mark destroy our marriage and possibly his career. "I want to meet her." "Absolutely not," Tom and Olivia said in unison. "Think about it," I pressed. "She knows things we don't. And if she's reaching out now, it could be a trap," Tom warned. "Mark could be using her too." My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Paul. "Helen's not who you think she is. Neither is Mark. Meet me tomorrow, 10 a.m. ST. James Park. Come alone." The pieces were shifting, alliances realigning. I thought I was just exposing an affair, but I'd stumbled into something darker. "I'm meeting Paul," I decided. And then Samantha. "At least let me come with you," Olivia pleaded. "No. They'll only talk if I'm alone." I closed the laptop, my mind racing. "Besides, I need you to do something else for me." "What?" "I need you to visit Helen. Take her to lunch, keep her busy. She can't know I'm meeting Paul." Tom paced the room. "This is getting complicated, Alicia. Maybe we should just take what we have to the authorities." "Not yet." I pulled up the photo of that damned necklace on my phone. Mark and Samantha didn't just betray me. They're betraying their clients, the firm, everyone. I want to understand why. "Revenge won't make you feel better," Olivia said softly. "This isn't about feeling better." I met her concerned gaze. "It's about justice. And truth. Whatever's happening, the Bennett family has built their life on lies. I'm just the match that's going to burn it all down." My phone lit up again, Mark this time. "Come home. Please. I can explain everything." I deleted the message without responding. The woman who would have rushed home to hear his explanations died the moment I found that necklace. In her place was someone stronger, someone who understood that sometimes you have to break things to fix them. "Get some sleep," Tom advised. "Tomorrow's going to be a long day." I nodded, but we all knew I wouldn't sleep. Not with Paul's cryptic message about Helen haunting me. Not with Samantha reaching out. Not with millions of dollars flowing to offshore accounts under the guise of legitimate business. The necklace had been just the beginning, a single thread that, when pulled, was unraveling an entire tapestry of deceit. Tomorrow, I'd start gathering the pieces I needed to destroy the perfect image of the Bennett family. Mark thought he was the player, but he'd forgotten one crucial detail: I was the one who had nothing left to lose. And that made me more dangerous than he could imagine. St. James Park was deserted at 10 in the morning, except for Paul Bennett sitting on a bench, looking older than I'd ever seen him. His hands trembled slightly as he fed breadcrumbs to pigeons. "Helen doesn't know I'm here," he said as I sat beside him. "She thinks I'm at golf." "Like Mark was at golf last month in Miami?" The words came out sharper than intended. Paul's laugh was hollow. "Miami? Is that what he told you?" He stopped feeding the birds. "He was in Grand Cayman. Setting up accounts. Just like his mother taught him." The morning air suddenly felt colder. "What are you saying?" "The Bennett family business isn't just finance, Alicia. It's fraud. Has been for 30 years. Paul's voice dropped. "Helen learned it from her brother Robert. The one who didn't actually move to Australia." "Where is he?" "Federal prison. Though Helen tells everyone he's living it up in Sydney." A jogger passed by, and we fell silent until she was gone. My phone buzzed, another message from Samantha. I ignored it. "Why are you telling me this now?" Paul's hands clenched. "Because I've spent 3 decades watching Helen destroy people. Including our son. And now." He pulled out an envelope. "These are account numbers. Dates. Names. Everything you need. You're betraying your family. I'm saving what's left of it." He stood up. "Helen's brother went to prison to protect her. Mark will do the same for Samantha. Unless. Unless what?" "Unless someone stops them first." He checked his watch. "Helen's having lunch with your friend Olivia right now. You have 2 hours to get what you need from the house." My heart raced. "What's in the house?" "Helen's laptop. The one she never lets anyone touch. Passwords in the envelope." He started walking away, then turned back. "Oh, and Alicia? Don't trust Samantha. She's not trying to help you. She's trying to save herself." I watched him disappear down the path, the envelope heavy in my hands. My phone buzzed again. "Samantha, insistent, meeting. Now. Your marriage isn't the only thing at stake." I texted back, "Noon. The cafe on 4th. The drive to my former home felt surreal. The house looked exactly the same, pristine lawn, perfect flowers, all hiding rot beneath the surface. My key still worked. Helen's study was locked, but I'd watched her hide the spare key enough times to know it was taped under the 3rd drawer of the hallway cabinet. Inside, everything was immaculate, except for one photo frame lying face down. I picked it up. Helen and a man who had to be Robert, both younger, both smiling. The glass was cracked. The laptop was exactly where Paul said it would be. The password worked. And there had always decades of carefully orchestrated fraud hidden behind charitable foundations and offshore accounts. Names I recognized from country club membership lists appeared next to numbers that made me dizzy. My phone rang. "Olivia." "Helen just got a call," she said quickly. "She's leaving lunch early. Something about her study." "How long?" 20 minutes, maybe less." I connected a flash drive, started copying files. Each second felt like an eternity. My phone buzzed with a text from Mark. "Where are you? We need to talk." Then another from Samantha. "Don't make me take this public." The files were only halfway copied when I heard a car in the driveway. Then another. Through the study window, I saw Helen's Mercedes. and behind it, Mark's BMW. The laptop screen showed 15 minutes remaining on the file transfer. I had maybe 30 seconds before they reached the front door. Sometimes choices make themselves. I grabbed the laptop, unplugged it, and headed for the back door. Let them wonder where it went. Let them panic. I was done being the victim in their game. It was time to change the rules. As I drove away, my phone lit up one last time. A message from Paul: whatever you found, be careful. Helen won't just be angry. She'll be desperate. And desperate people are dangerous. I touched the laptop on the seat beside me. Desperate people are dangerous, yes. But so are betrayed ones. The cafe on 4th was crowded enough to feel safe, but quiet enough to hear threats. Samantha sat at a corner table, her perfect manicure tapping against a manila envelope. She looked smaller somehow, less polished than the woman who'd stolen my husband. "You're late," she said as I sat down. I was busy stealing Helen's laptop. I watched her face pale. Amazing what you find when you start digging. Her fingers stopped tapping. "That's why I needed to see you. Things are getting out of control. Things got out of control when you and Mark started moving client money offshore. You don't understand." She leaned forward. "Helen's been running this scheme for decades. Mark and we're just the latest puppets." I placed Helen's laptop on the table between us. "Show me." She hesitated, then opened it. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, accessing files I hadn't found. Documents appeared, transfers, shell companies, a web of deceptions spanning generations. "Helen approached me 6 months ago," Samantha said. "Said if I wanted to advance at the firm, I needed to prove my loyalty. The affair with Mark. That was her idea too. You expect me to believe that? I expect you to look at this." She pulled papers from her envelope. "Helen's been blackmailing half the board. The affair gave her leverage over Mark and me. But you..." She smiled thinly. "You're her blind spot." My phone buzzed, Helen calling again. I declined it. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because in 48 hours, the SEC will receive an anonymous tip. The firm will be investigated. Mark will take the fall, protecting his mother like she planned. And I'll disappear with enough money to start over. Unless you help me take Helen down first." She slid the envelope across the table. "Everything you need is in here. But we have to move fast." My phone lit up with a text from Olivia: "Helen's at your house. She's tearing it apart looking for something." Then another from Paul: "She knows. Get somewhere safe." "Tick-tock, Alicia," Samantha said. "What's it going to be?" I stood up, gathering both the laptop and the envelope. "You're working for Helen, aren't you? This is a trap." Her face gave nothing away. "You really think she'd trust me with this much evidence?" "I think you're trying to save yourself." I backed away from the table. "And I think you're not the only one with proof." She reached for my arm, but I pulled away. "Alicia, wait. Tell Helen she taught her son well. He's just as good at betrayal as she is." Outside, my hands shook as I called Tom. "I need your help. Now." "Where are you?" "Heading to your office. Bring Olivia." "And Tom?" "We need to talk about federal whistleblower protection." I drove randomly, making sure no one was following. My phone kept buzzing: Mark, Helen, even Paul now. Each one trying to control the narrative, manipulate the outcome. The necklace that started everything sat in my purse, a reminder of how simple I'd thought this would be. Just expose an affair, hurt him like he hurt me. But now... A new text came through from an unknown number. You have something that belongs to me. Last chance to return it quietly. H. I pulled into the parking garage at Tom's law firm, Helen's laptop and Samantha's envelope beside me. The choice crystallized. I could run, disappear like Samantha planned to. Or I could do what the Bennetts never expected, fight back openly, legally, publicly. The elevator ride to Tom's office felt like ascending to execution or salvation. I didn't know which yet. But I knew one thing: I was done playing by Helen's rules. My phone buzzed one final time. Mark, whatever you're planning, don't. Please. You don't know what she's capable of. But he was wrong. Thanks to his affair, thanks to his mother's schemes, thanks to all their lies and manipulations, I knew exactly what Helen was capable of. And I was about to prove I could be just as dangerous. Tom's office felt like a war room, documents spread across his desk, Olivia pacing by the window. The city lights below seemed too peaceful for what we were planning. If we file these whistleblower documents, Tom said, there's no going back. The SEC will investigate everyone involved. My phone lit up, Helen's name again. This time, I answered. Where's my laptop? Her voice was ice. Safe. Along with everything else I found. I met Olivia's concerned gaze. It's over, Helen. Nothing's over until I say it is. A pause. Check your email. I pulled up my inbox on Tom's computer. The message from Helen contained a single video file. My hands shook as I pressed play. It was security footage from 3 years ago, me, drunk at a company party, kissing Mark for the first time. But the angle showed something I'd forgotten, my wedding ring, glinting as I reached for him. My first husband's ring. Still want to play? Helen asked. I have more. So much more. The room tilted. That was before. Before you divorced James to marry my son? Before you orchestrated your own little financial scheme with your first husband's company? Amazing what money can buy, including old security footage. Tom was already pulling up documents, but I knew. Helen had outmaneuvered me. What do you want? Dinner. Tonight. Bring everything you took. Every copy, every file. Her voice softened dangerously. Or tomorrow, everyone learns how you really joined the Bennett family. The line went dead. Olivia touched my shoulder. Alicia? She knew, I whispered. She knew about James, about everything. She let me marry Mark anyway. She was planning this all along. Tom leaned forward. Whatever happened with your first marriage, it doesn't justify their fraud. No. I stared at the frozen video image. But it proves I'm just like them. Everything I accused Mark of, the lies, the manipulation, I did it first. My phone buzzed with a text from Paul, don't trust anything. Helen's desperate. Then one from Mark, Mom's setting a trap. Don't come to dinner. Even Samantha, whatever she offered, she's lying. But it didn't matter. Helen had won. She turned my revenge into a mirror, showing me my own corruption. We can still file the whistleblower claim, Tom insisted. Your past doesn't. Stop. I stood up, gathering Helen's laptop and Samantha's envelope. I'm going to dinner. Alicia, no. Olivia blocked the door. She'll destroy you. She already has. I pulled out the silver necklace that started everything. I wanted revenge because Mark betrayed me. But I betrayed someone first. I'm no better than any of them. That's not true, Olivia protested. You've changed. You're not that person anymore. But wasn't I? Hadn't every move I'd made been about revenge, about hurting them like they hurt me? My phone lit up with the dinner details, Helen's house, 8 o'clock. A final text followed, wear the necklace. It suits you more than you know. I looked at Tom's desk, covered in evidence of the Bennett family's crimes. Evidence I'd gathered while ignoring my own sins. Helen hadn't just outplayed me, she'd forced me to face my own reflection. I have to go, I said quietly. But first, I need you to do something for me. Anything, Olivia said. I handed her a USB drive. If I don't call you by midnight, send this to every news outlet in the city. It's everything, their fraud, my past, all of it. Alicia. Sometimes, I cut her off, the only way to end a game is to burn the whole board. I walked out before they could stop me, Helen's laptop heavy in my bag. The necklace felt cold against my skin as I fastened it. Helen thought she'd won, thought she'd broken me by exposing my past. But she'd forgotten something crucial, someone with nothing left to lose is the most dangerous player of all. 8 o'clock couldn't come soon enough. Helen's dining room felt like a stage set for a Greek tragedy. Paul sat rigid at one end of the table, Mark at the other. Samantha, surprisingly present, perched between them like a nervous bird. The silver necklace felt cold against my throat as I took my seat. Helen poured wine with steady hands. I believe you have something of mine. I placed her laptop on the table. Funny. I was about to say the same thing. Always so dramatic. She smiled, but her eyes were sharp. Just like with James. Tell them, I said quietly. Tell them why you really let me marry Mark. Mark's head snapped up. What is she talking about? Your mother knew everything about me before we met. My first marriage, the financial scandal at James's company, all of it. I met Helen's gaze. She needed someone compromised. Someone she could control. That's ridiculous, Mark started, but Helen's laugh cut him off. Control? She took her seat. Dear, I needed someone who understood the game. And you played it so well with James. Samantha shifted uncomfortably. Paul's knuckles went white around his wine glass. The difference, I said, is that I learned from my mistakes. Can you say the same? Helen's smile faltered slightly. Mistakes? Like stealing my laptop? Or conspiring with Paul? Like letting your brother take the fall for your crimes? I pulled out my phone, pressed play. Robert's voice filled the room, a recorded confession from prison detailing decades of Helen's manipulation. The color drained from her face. Where did you? Paul's not the only one who can visit prison. I looked at Mark. Your uncle had a lot to say about family loyalty. Enough. Helen stood. Give me the laptop, the files, everything. Or I release the video. Go ahead. I touched the necklace. But first, explain this. It's just jewelry. It belonged to Robert's wife, Paul said suddenly. Before Helen convinced him to take the blame for her first fraud scheme. Before his wife disappeared. The room went still. Helen's hands began to shake. Mom? Mark's voice cracked. What did you do? What I had to do. Helen's mask finally cracked. Everything I did was to protect this family. No, I said softly. Everything you did was to protect yourself. The affairs, the fraud, the manipulation, it was all about control. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I stood, facing her. Because you're right, I am like you. Or I was. Until I realized revenge isn't about destroying others. It's about choosing not to become them. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. What did you do? Helen whispered. I called the SEC. I looked at my watch. About 20 minutes ago. Right after I sent them everything, the laptop files, Robert's confession, all of it. "You'll go down with us," Samantha blurted. "The video is worthless," Paul interrupted. "Because I already confessed to helping Helen fabricate it." Helen's wine glass shattered on the floor. Mark buried his face in his hands. "You can't," Helen breathed. "This family isn't a family," I finished. "It's a prison. And I'm setting everyone free." The sirens stopped outside. Car doors slammed. "Why?" Helen's voice was barely audible. "Why now?" I unclasped the necklace, let it fall to the table. "Because sometimes the only way to end a cycle of revenge is to choose justice instead." The front door burst open. Federal agents flooded in, reading rights, securing evidence. Through it all, Helen stood frozen, staring at the necklace that had started everything. As they led her away, she turned back. "You really think this is justice?" "No," I said. "This is mercy. Because the truth is a kinder prison than the one you built for yourself." Mark caught my arm as the agents approached him. "I never knew about any of it." "I know." I gently pulled away. "That's why you get a chance to start over. Make better choices." Outside, dawn was breaking. Olivia waited in her car, ready to take me home. The necklace stayed behind, a silver reminder that sometimes the best revenge is choosing to break the chain of betrayal, even when you have every right to continue it. The courthouse steps felt different this time. 6 weeks of trials, testimonies, and truth had stripped away the fear. Helen's sentencing was today, but I wasn't there to watch. I had my own closure to find. Paul waited by the fountain, looking older but somehow lighter. "The divorce papers are signed," he said, handing me an envelope. "Mark didn't contest anything." "How is he?" "Starting over. In Seattle." Paul smiled faintly. "Sometimes running away is actually running towards something better." I touched the envelope. "And Helen?" 15 years. "Could have been worse if you hadn't testified about Robert." He hesitated. "She asked to see you." "I know." I'd received her letters, each one a mixture of anger and desperate manipulation. Some bridges need to stay burned. Samantha had taken a plea deal, turning state's evidence. Last I heard, she was working at a small firm in Chicago, trying to rebuild her life. The necklace that started everything was logged into evidence, its secrets finally laid bare. "I have something for you," Paul said, pulling out another envelope. "Robert wanted you to have this." Inside was a photograph, Helen and Robert as children, before greed and power poisoned everything. On the back, in faded ink, "Remember who we were." "She wasn't always like this," Paul said quietly. "None of us were. That's what makes it tragic." I tucked the photo away. "We all have choices." My phone buzzed, Olivia, reminding me about dinner. Life went on, even after revenge and reckoning reshaped everything. "What will you do now?" Paul asked. I looked at the courthouse, where justice and vengeance had finally merged into something like peace. "Start over. But differently than Mark." "Meaning?" "I'm reopening the investigation into Robert's wife's disappearance." I met his surprised gaze. "Some truths need to be told, even if they're painful." "Helen won't help." "She doesn't need to. The truth has a way of surfacing, like that necklace in Mark's car." I stood, gathering my belongings. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone's future. It's about uncovering their past. Paul touched my arm. "You could just walk away. Live your life." "I am living my life. Just not the one Helen scripted for me." I smiled. Besides, someone needs to speak for those who can't speak for themselves anymore. As I walked away, Paul called out, "Was it worth it? All of this?" I thought about the necklace, about Helen's schemes, about Mark's betrayal. About how revenge had started as something personal but evolved into something like justice. "Ask me when we find Robert's wife," I said. Some stories don't end. They just change narrators. The autumn air felt crisp, full of possibilities. My phone buzzed again, an email from Robert's old secretary, finally willing to talk about the night his wife vanished. About Helen's role in what happened. Some would call it revenge, continuing to dig into Helen's past. But they'd be wrong. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth, about choices, about the stories we tell ourselves to justify our actions. The necklace that started my story would help end someone else's. And maybe that's what justice really is, not an ending, but a continuation. A promise to keep uncovering truth, even when revenge has lost its taste. I headed toward Olivia's house, where friendship and future waited. Behind me, the courthouse stood silent, holding secrets and sentences, justice and retribution. But ahead lay something better than revenge. The truth. And this time, I wasn't looking for it in a car's backseat or a hidden laptop. This time, I was walking toward it with open eyes, ready to face whatever stories emerged from the shadows of the Bennett family's past. Some chains are made of silver. Others of secrets. But all of them, eventually, break under the weight of truth.